the most embarrassing time in our country's history, in my opinion. Then our give up on energy independence and even energy dominant. We're going to be dominant within 6 months, more than any other nation times 2.
What?
We had this all just 3 years ago.
He just says
raging
this shit.
crime statistics, if you
don't
look
have a
in
policy.
Democrat-run cities, numbers the likes of which we have never seen before, the open threats by various countries of the use of nuclear weapons, something never mentioned or discussed by outside nations during the Trump administration.
That's going to be his excuse to give
would very well
Ukraine to
lead
Russia.
under the Biden administration's leadership to an all-out nuclear World War III can happen. We're not very far away from it, believe it or not.
He's going to call
An
himself
economy that
savvy
has been
for
crippled by the biggest inflation we have seen in more than 60 years.
fucking over Ukraine.
And a military that I used to defeat ISIS in 4 weeks. They said it would take 4 years. 4 weeks. To kill al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, that has now gone woke at the top levels by trying to indoctrinate everyone down to the lowest ranking patriot. But now they have really stepped up their efforts by indicting
He's going to ask for donations, isn't he?
the 45th president of the United States, who received $75 million votes, which is more than any sitting president in the history of our country.
I guess if Putin launches a nuke, Donald Trump would blame the United States. It's very patriotic.
They've got a local racist Democrat district attorney in Atlanta who is doing everything in her power to indict me over an absolutely perfect phone call, even more perfect than the one I made
keeps
with
saying
the president
perfect.
of Ukraine. Remember, I kept
What
saying
does that
it's a
even
perfect
mean?
call. This one was more perfect. Nobody said, "Sir, you shouldn't say that." Many people on the phone
Indictments, not felonies.
or hung up in disgust because
We don't know
of
how many
something
felonies.
I inappropriately said. Because nothing was said wrong. In fact, at the end of the call,
Welcome
we
back,
agreed to
History.
continue our conversation
Lenny,
about election
Davey.
fraud
Dem Goblin.
and election fraud, specifically in Georgia, at a later time. Many people on the phone, including lots of lawyers, nobody found anything wrong with that perfect call until a book promotion tour many months later. All of a sudden they say, I remember Trump making a call. Let's look at that.
It was a big
This fake
story
case
when it
brought
was
only
released.
to
It had nothing to
interfere
do with
with
the
the upcoming
book. What are you
2024
talking about?
election. And it should be dropped immediately. Then you have a radical left lunatic known as a bomb thrower who is harassing hundreds of my people day after day over the boxes hoax. You know, the boxes hoax, as we call it. Just so everyone knows, I come under what's known as the Presidential Records Act, which was designed and approved by Congress long ago just for this reason. Under the Act, I'm supposed to negotiate with NARA, the National Archives
I'm very tired of this.
Records Administration, which as of this date is a radical left troublemaking organization that red flags the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights as dangerous and triggering. Can you imagine? This is what we have to deal with. But there is no criminality under the Presidential Records Act. That is not what it's all about. We were negotiating in very good faith, proper way, in order to return some or all of the documents that I
He's just a regular
openly
citizen. He
and in
doesn't have
very
any
plain sight
power outside of his
brought
charisma.
with me to Mar-a-Lago from our beautiful White House, just as virtually every other president has done in the past. When FBI and DOJ officials with NARA with
I will say though, he has the Republican Party under his little Cheeto thumb.
very secure storage room in which they were locked. The FBI's sole request in
These are
writing
all lies,
was,
Chem
"Could you
Goblin.
please
I mean,
put another lock on the door?"
None of this is truthful. I swear to
We
God, I'm not even being
immediately
partisan.
complied. It's a lot different than the Biden situation. isn't
Keeps
it?
whispering.
The next thing I
Have
know,
the
we
volume
were raided
cranked.
by many gun-toting FBI agents who took whatever they wanted, including my passports and medical records.
Yeah, because you're a flight risk, dude.
Everybody was in shock. Nobody had ever heard of such a raid before. Can't even believe it. Who would think that that could happen today? I immediately thought of the Fourth Amendment that protects against unreasonable search and seizure. But they did it anyway because our justice system has become lawless. They're using it now, in addition to everything else, to
Chem Goblin,
win
just to explain this a little bit, let me just turn on the
Apparently
closed
they're not
captions. Just to explain this a little bit, the reason why he's lying through his teeth this way is that,
They came up with a new
you know,
one.
even if he gets convicted and whatever, what he hopes is that he can keep this momentum going, become president, and then basically, you know, undo all this.
Even though that has absolutely nothing to do with openly taking
And I disagree
boxes
with
of
Davey.
documents and mostly
I
clothing
think
and other
he's got a
things to
better
my
chance
home,
than we're
which
giving him.
President Obama has done, the Bushes have done, Jimmy Carter's done, Ronald Reagan has done. Everybody's done. In fact, Hillary Clinton got rid of 33,000 emails, and that was okay. But nobody's done it like Joe Biden. This lunatic special prosecutor named Jack Smith, I wonder what it was prior to a change.
Who
Who
cares?
others of his ilk say he's even worse than they are, is only looking at Trump, yet Joe Biden took massive amounts more documents, even removed many boxes to Chinatown. You believe that?
Okay, I mean, once again, I mean, is he making the argument that because Joe Biden broke the law, that I should be allowed to break the law? i.e., I broke the law.
Strewn all over his
I mean,
garage
these
floor.
are the arguments a child makes when you catch them with an extra cup of pudding. Honestly, you did it. You ate an extra pudding. Well, you did it. Yeah, that doesn't make it any less wrong, dude.
Which he is.
You still broke a rule. But you did it.
But isn't that real obstruction? That's obstruction. As president, I have the right
Whispering.
to declassify
I feel like he's
documents.
trying to seduce me.
And the process is automatic. If I take them with me, it's automatic.
What pudding?
Declassified. Biden was vice president. He had absolutely no right to declassify as vice president. He doesn't come under the Non-Criminal Presidential Records Act. He comes under the very criminal
Interesting
Federal
argument,
Records
Davey.
Act, unfortunately for him, but it's not
I don't know
gonna
if I
matter
disagree with it.
because
It's an interesting
They
one.
don't follow the law, which has very
Yeah,
severe
you can always
penalties.
tell. Yeah, Lenny, totally.
He had classified documents that he took while he was a senator.
Yeah, but he didn't. Okay,
Which is
I
absolutely
agree. Joe Biden did, but Joe Biden is a, you know, he just. I think he honestly didn't fucking know. Okay, and he gave them up immediately and fully cooperated with the investigation. Where you resisted, held on to documents even after they raided you. You had more documents.
So many thousands and thousands. It's okay with him.
Well, Joe
They
Biden
like to say
did it.
that I'm
Hunter
obstructing,
Biden went
which
top.
I'm not.
That shit doesn't work in a court
Because I
of law,
was working
man.
with NARA very nicely until the raid on my home. But Biden is obstructing by making it impossible to get the 1,850 boxes or explain why many documents were located in Chinatown. Can't explain it. Why were they in Chinatown? I don't know. Lastly, I'm
Let
under
the justice
investigation.
system do it.
This time a civil
Flatfoot?
investigation by another racist in reverse who also campaigned on, I will get Trump. I will get him. This was her campaign. Never ran for office. I will
He
get
doesn't
him.
run adversarial campaigns,
Her
man.
name is Letitia James.
Like he doesn't say, I'm going to go after this or I'm going to go after
And she
that.
proclaimed while campaighing, quote, I
God,
look
he's
forward
such
to
a
going into
hypocrite.
the office of the Attorney General every single day, suing him, and then going home. Just before she knew me. She announced, what is fueling my soul right now is Trump. And that she had her eyes on Trump Tower. Those eyes are focused on Trump Tower. Didn't know the young lady.
Trump Tower in New
She
York
even
is a
assured her
cool
supporters
looking
in an
building. I
election
hate
promise
that it's cool.
that we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally.
None of that proves anything
And
other
then
than she doesn't
claimed
like
that
you.
I was an illegitimate president. Think of it. With all,
And look, I mean, it
with
doesn't
all
matter,
we
man.
did,
It does not matter. All the evidence will be totally verified and double checked and triple checked. They're going through all this trouble to make sure it's all fake. It's all fake. And his supporters, until they hit the fucking grave, man, it's all fake. It was all fake. Doesn't matter. That obviously doesn't mean that we shouldn't proceed, but it's just it doesn't give them special magic powers. But the neoliberals, you know, they're not going to put him in jail, though. They're not going to put him in jail.
and that of her family,
Not even a white collar jail.
and his family, because we're going after his family, and we're going after them hard. This is all before entering office and all
They're not
before
gonna
knowing
do it,
anything at all about me. But she's going to get me. This is why, along with unrelenting crime, so many people and companies are leaving New York. She said that I
refuse to have
falsified
hope.
my financial statements, but in fact, we're proving
You're starting to give me
we'll
hope,
prove that my
baby.
financial statements were substantially more
Starting to give
than
me
we
some hope
submitted,
here.
not less. And in all cases, have a strong disclaimer clause in them, which tells the institutions that may look at that if they want to, not to rely on the statement. But they've got a problem with their case because, number one, I'm very underleveraged. They can't believe it. All the stuff they read and gave, and have very little debt relative to the value of assets. And importantly, not one bank has lost even $1. She was investigating me to save banks. They have very good lawyers. But they didn't lose $1 with us during this period of time. In fact, the banks we're talking about made almost $200 million off Donald Trump, and they liked me very much. We never missed a payment, never got a default.
Are you allowed to tweet from white collar jail? You're not allowed to tweet from. You're not allowed to have social media from white collar jail, are you?
Built a great business with my family. Built a fantastic business.
How many times has this guy filed for bankruptcy? Oh God! And he's a lizard person.
I have a son here who's done a great job, and I have another son here who's done a great job.
You're a lizard person.
And Ivanka and Barron will be great someday. He's tall, he's smart, but I have a great family, and they've done a fantastic job, and we appreciate it very much. They've done it. So she's suing me over banks that weren't defrauded, when she should be focused on violent crime that's driving people out of the state. This is a persecution, not an investigation. She's put our family through hell. It's cost hundreds of millions of dollars to defend, but our heads are held very, very high.
Yeah, but that was technically illegal, right,
But I
Davey?
want no part of that. So here we are now. It's where we were today.
Okay.
In a city that was so great just 4 or 5 years ago.
Nothing changed when you
Now
were
we're
president.
there. Spend time there today.
Shit just
She
got
possibly
worse.
read. With a local failed district attorney charging a former president of the United States for the first time in history on a basis that every single pundit and legal analyst said, there is no case. There's no case. They kept saying, there's no case.
There's 34 cases. There's actually
Virtually
34
everyone.
potential cases.
But it's far worse than that because he knew there was no case. That's why last week he delayed for a month and then immediately took that back and threw this ridiculous indictment together. Came out today, everybody said, this is not really an indictment. There's nothing here.
Who said
Lawyers
that?
came to me and they said, there's nothing here. They're not even saying what you did. The criminal is the district attorney because he illegally leaked massive amounts of grand jury information for which
He's
he
the
should be
criminal.
prosecuted. Or at a minimum, he should resign. And Alvin Bragg's wife confirmed a report that claimed her husband has Trump nailed on felonies. She has since locked down her Twitter account.
Wow, you intimidated
His chief
her just shutting off her
who
Twitter.
represented the Democrats and crooked Hillary Clinton, and a firm run by Chuck Schumer's brother, Robert. He quit the firm in order to go to work in the DA office in order to get Trump. Can you imagine that? Hillary Clinton's lawyer, Democrat firm. Ultimately, he quit as chief prosecutor because Bragg didn't think he had a
talking
case.
indictment
Think of that
so
same guy
that
that
he
brought this
wouldn't know the
ridiculous thing
charges.
today. Yet during his investigation, this prosecutor named Mark Pomerantz wrote and published a book saying all sorts of privileged things, and has been very strongly reprimanded. He was reprimanded so strongly. I've never seen anything like it. That's probably the end of it. But what he did was probably very illegal. But he was very,
Little
very
dystopian.
strongly reprimanded.
It's a sign of the times.
Even District Attorney Bragg was furious with him. They were having a tremendous fight in the office because of it. But hope is never
These are
lost
rumors.
because various
This is just
prosecutors in the
rumors.
DA's office also quit because they thought President Trump was being treated very unfairly. How about that? Isn't that great?
Okay, I mean, am I getting this wrong, or is his entire narrative, you did it too? Is literally his entire legal is like in legal argument, Joe Biden did it too? Is that it? That's literally admitting guilt.
Crime in New York was up 30% last year. Much more than that the year before, with felony assaults, robberies, and burglaries all up by massive, massive numbers. Not the same place that I know, not the same place.
Like these fascists are going to do a
And
goddamn
this is
thing
where
about
we
it.
are right now. I have a Trump-hating judge with a Trump-hating wife and family whose daughter worked for Kamala Harris and now receives money from the Biden-Harris campaign, and a lot of that. We recently had
How do
another
people
trial,
stand
and the
this?
same judge told the fine man who worked for me for many, many years
This is fucking
that
unbearable.
if you admit your guilt, you will be in jail for 90 days. But if you don't, if we go through a trial and you're found guilty, you're going away for 10 years and maybe longer, which for a 75-year-old man with a great family really means life. What the prosecutors and judge did to that man, I will never forget, because it's right out of the old Soviet Union. That's where we are. They said, you
Text
say
Trump to
anything
send him
about
money.
Trump, meaning that's bad, and you won't even have to serve the 90 days. You'll walk free. And they say that to many of my employees. We have this Jack Smith lunatic threatening people every single day through his representatives. They're threatening jail terms. But talk about Trump and you'll go free. This is where we are as a nation. Who would have thought? They can't beat us at the ballot box, so they try and beat us through the law. That's the country in which we live, however, right now.
Authoritarian
The USA
cults of
is a mess.
personalities can be
Our economy
exciting.
is crashing. Inflation is out of control. Russia has joined with China. Can you believe that? Saudi Arabia has joined with Iran. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea have formed together as a menacing and destructive coalition. Would have never happened if I were your president. Would never have happened. Nor would Russia attacking Ukraine have happened. All of those lives would be saved. All of those beautiful cities would be standing. Our currency is crashing and will soon no longer be the world standard,
Just let Putin
which
win.
will be our greatest
My
defeat,
God,
frankly, in 200
what a puss.
years. There will be no defeat like that. That will take us away from being even a great power. If you took the 5 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added
These heartless motherfuckers are blaming Zelensky and Ukraine for the destruction of their cities. It's bile inducing. Yeah, the dollar is pretty strong right now. NATO's
Incredibly,
expanding.
we are now a failing nation.
Not even close.
We are a nation in decline. And now these radical left lunatics want to interfere with our elections by using law enforcement. We can't let that happen.
Is the rule of law more important than elections, or are elections more important than the rule of law? I hear Republicans make this argument.
With all
oh,
of
it's
this
election
being
season.
said, and with a very
That makes you
dark
immune?
cloud over our beloved country,
Yeah,
I
we should have let
no
Russia
doubt,
win, though, Davey.
nevertheless, that we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you.
Oh my God, it's done. Ooh. All right, let's see what the fucking MSNBC crew has to say. You know what I said to myself when I hit start stream? I want to hear what Chuck Todd has to say because I hate myself. Because I'm miserable.
Against Alvin Bragg and talking. He says everybody who looked at
this.
this case says there's no crime and it should never have been brought. That is clearly not the case. The Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg thinks there is a case here. That is why he has brought this. He is referencing, it sounds like, some of his allies on Capitol Hill and elsewhere in the party who are backing him up to say that this is, in their view, political persecution of a current presidential candidate. It's an opportunity really here for Donald Trump to make his case as to, as we talked about right at the start of this, why he pleaded not guilty today. We so far have not heard that case, as he has made the turn now to other investigations in front of him, including, of course, that special counsel investigation on classified documents.
Yeah, we also want to let you know, the viewers at home, that if he starts to talk about this case once again, we will dip back in. But as Hallie mentioned, it sort of turned into a campaign speech. And again, a lot of falsehoods coming out from the former president. I do want to bring in our White House correspondent, Chief White House Correspondent Kristen Welker, who covered the president on the campaign trail, covered the president in the White House, and is here tonight. I will say this, Kristen, one thing I did
All
notice.
I care about is Chucky,
watching
baby.
him walk into that Mar-a-Lago banquet room, the crowd went wild. They loved him. And the first thing
It is so funny that these fucking people got to say pecker. Oh, they got to say pecker. I'm so tired right now. It's right on the tip of my tongue. But there's a really funny name that they had to say over and over and over again just a couple months ago. Oh, I can't think about it. Pecker is a good one, though.
thought of was 2016. He had that 23.
Stormy Daniels is making gross ass. She's like, I'm proud to be a cum dumpster. It's like, okay, whatever. I'm really so glad to have you as part of the political discourse.
3% to 27% core Republican audience that stayed with them. The MAGA crowd is still alive. It clearly was there. You see the people taking the selfies with the hats. He still has this base that is still very, very strong. And I was thinking, I don't know if there's another Republican, I'd argue, I don't know if there's another Democrat who has that type of fervor behind them right now.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
How is this piece of shit
was alive and well and on display in Mar-a-Lago as he walked out.
He is alive and
that
well.
basic
How?
support sort of stays within that
How,
margin that you
dude?
just talked about, Tom. Think about the contrast between him walking out at Mar-a-Lago and what we saw at the courthouse,
Yeah.
which was essentially protesters on both sides.
Do
Those
the
who
jack-off
support him, those who
dance.
are opposed to him, they were largely peaceful. We want
Do the
to
jack-off
make
dance.
that point. What struck me about tonight is that it really feels like a preview of what we're going to see on the campaign trail. A list of his greatest
Oh, it's never
hits
ending.
of grievances.
Yeah.
As you say, and he added one more to that list.
Sure.
That's effectively what we are seeing. Why is that significant? I spoke with a top Republican
Speak
prior
with
to this
Chuck Todd.
indictment who said, we're not hearing anything new from the former president on the campaign trail.
Where's
When
Chuck?
is he going to introduce something new? This indictment, in many ways, gives him something new to talk
And
about.
this sounded like the speech in Waco. It sounded almost carbon copy, the speech in Waco.
Part
You're
of this
way
is
off,
intentional
Davey.
because before this
Yes.
campaign even began, we were talking to sources.
Davey, you're way off, man. Fucking, he's out pulling Ron DeSantis in Florida, dog. What are you talking about? 25%. Only going to 25% vote for him. Only 25% going to vote for DeSantis if they have a choice between, Donald and DeSantis there. Hamburger Ron DeSanctimonious. That ain't my president. I'm Trump man. I like Trump and beef jerky.
who told us, all of us here, that this was likely going to be a 2016 redux writ large in the campaign. There is something that he did say.
Writ
I think
large.
if you're looking for something that is relevant to the next legal steps here, I think
Chuck
it's important.
Todd.
He said this case should be immediately dropped, and we know that his
You're
attorneys
crazy. Davey,
seem
you're
likely
crazy.
to try to want to file a motion to discharge. I want to bring in not just Gabe Gutierrez, who's
You ain't
been
gonna
posted up
lose.
at that courtroom all day, but our senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett and one of our NBC News legal analysts Danny Savalos as well.
None of these people are
when
Chuck
he says
Todd.
something like this case should be dropped immediately, Laura, we know that his attorneys will likely pursue that avenue, right?
Yeah, they're obviously going to file a motion to dismiss the charges as soon as possible. And part of the reason they're going to do that is the
Smarts don't get you votes in the Republican Party. And you know what? Fox News has turned into it's really bizarre watching Fox. I've been watching Fox all day. And they want DeSantis, but they can't refuse Trump's, charisma either. Right? So they want the Trump numbers, but they also are trying to push DeSantis. So they're like letting their commentators inject doubt into this, oh, he might get arrested. It's the rule of law. But every person they talk to is like, this is kangaroo court. This is, weaponization of the justice system. So they don't know. They're schizophrenic right now. They don't know where they're coming or going. But it's pretty clear that there's this split right down the middle at Fox of people who are like rah Trump and like we should be smart and pick DeSantis. If I would be more entertained by this if the neoliberals were coming with a stronger position. But Joe Biden is not a strong politician anymore. I don't think he's senile. I'm not believing that narrative. I've seen him in interviews. He responds. He knows what he's talking about. He's just, he's just an 80-year-old man. Okay, that's just what happens when you get older. So I don't think he's going to do well against. I don't think he would do very well against Trump. I think he would do better against DeSantis, Joe Biden.
The way that Alvin Bragg has decided to bring this case, we had all thought, based on our reporting, that there would be a falsification of business records
I know a fellow
charge.
named
The
Dick
one
Johnson.
question we all had was, how are you going to bump it up to a felony? It now appears that his theory for how you bump
That's
it up
great.
to a felony is by using a federal election violation. At least that's
He has
part of
two
it. He also
phones.
throws in a mix of conspiracy and some tax issues there, but the federal piece of this is why you're going to see Trump's attorneys immediately try to go into federal court and say this entire thing is preempted by federal law. This should never have been brought into state court. It doesn't belong in state court. Throw it out before it even goes to a jury.
Danny, we know that former president really listens to only one person, and that is himself. If you were advising him and you told him to sort of take it easy before this speech, could he say anything tonight or in the future that could hurt him in this case?
Of course, and you would not be the first defendant to get.
It was a little different. It was the scenario is a little different. Trump wasn't the big victim, right? Now he's the big victim. But you do make a good point. From West of London here from My Nihilism.
They've ignored that advice and done
Shut
things
up.
their way, which is why they
Welcome
had to get a
back.
lawyer in the first place, because they do things their way. Trump is no exception, whether it's Trump giving remarks
Trump
at a
got all
speech
kinds
or
of
at a podium,
exceptions.
or a client who goes
Where's
to
the
jail and
mugshot,
talks on a
Slick?
recorded line.
Told you
Happens
they'd
all the
puss
time.
out on
I
it.
guarantee everyone here at this table knows a story like that, where criminal defendants
We don't get a
themselves into
mugshot.
more trouble than they were in to begin with. The only thing unusual here would be that it's a former president doing it, but make no mistake about it, the DA's office is hoping, even though they gave that speech today in court, hey, look, we're worried about what he's saying out there. We're worried about his words causing harm. I think if they were being honest, they would say, we love him tweeting. Tweeting is great for us. Sooner or later, he'll say something ridiculous, and we'll use it against him. This is a good thing for them that Trump is Trump.
I will say what we've seen from the former president so far in these
Yes, we'll
remarks
see.
here, and it is unsurprising given the audience in the room, is the way that he is feeding off of the energy of the people in that space. A far friendlier turf than he was on earlier today. When, Gabe, you saw this yourself as somebody who was stationed there at the courthouse, it was a different tone, a different attitude from Donald Trump. He was much more somber. He had just previously, in the minutes prior to us seeing him in court,
My
figured out
God,
and
what does
seen,
Chuck
right?
Todd
Been
have
given
to
the indictments, the
say?
actual charges
Okay,
against
they're
him.
going to get to
Right,
Chuck
Hallie. I mean,
Todd
we
in a
were
minute.
expecting former President Trump potentially to perhaps speak
Good.
to cameras as he walked into the courtroom. Did not do that. You saw the look on his face. He was extremely somber, and it was a place that he wasn't used to being. This wasn't, a reality show that, he could direct. There were no cameras in that courtroom, only still photographers that had been there
What?
right before
Love you,
the
baby.
arraignment. So it was an arraignment
Looking
unlike
good.
any that I had ever seen. Of course, you have to walk up to the floor to get to the 15th floor.
What was I
Two
gonna
sets of
say?
metal detectors. He was flanked by Secret Service
Oh,
agents.
yeah. I mean, I think he was advised by his lawyers just to, let's just get in, get out. Let's not make a scene.
Central Protective Order.
If you're asked a question directly, you have to answer it, and that's it. He let his lawyers do all the talking.
Prosecution was worried that some of this evidence, could be leaked.
It looks like his strategy is to play it smart. Play it smart, play it cool in the courtroom, but he's doing the Alex Jones thing where he's, at least before the start of this, he was Alex Jonesing it, shitting on the prosecutor. We just saw his speech. He's shitting on the prosecutor again, but he's not saying anything more than what he's already said. And will he be able to keep it contained? Keep it in his
Using language
pants.
that could incite violence.
I
To
know.
be fair,
I don't know if he can keep that mushroom in his pants. What the hell? What the hell? This guy's he barely looks human.
interesting to see. I wanted to see in this speech, and I hadn't heard it yet. He did mention D.A. Bragg, but he has so far not brought up the judge.
Pecker.
And over the last several
Say
weeks,
Pecker.
he had said, I'm posting on social media
those tweets.
that
Family members.
that this judge hates me. So far in this speech, he didn't mention that. Should be interesting to see once he gets past those
was
grievances
tired.
whether he does bring up the judge.
Yeah, I think it's such a good point, Gabe. Gabe and I had the opportunity to question former President Trump's attorneys after the
Who
legal
loves his
proceedings today,
mushroom?
and we were both asking them the same question. Have you told your client not to post inflammatory comments on social media, not to make
Okay,
inflammatory
yeah. They're on top of it, folks. But no, man, Putin loves Trump, man. I can see why. I mean, he's a big Putin cheerleader. He's basically, can you believe Ukraine did that to themselves by, going up against the mighty Russian Empire?
I was just observing something, having watched the speech
Oh,
and
thank
Waco now.
God.
And it seems like the former president's new strategy is very off-brand, right? When he first ran for office, he was on the offense, right? Build the wall, lock her up, the system is rigged. And now he's playing Trump the victim. And I just wonder, he has this list of grievances. He's starting his speeches out this way. If that's going to be effective for him, because it almost sounds at times like he is complaining when he first burst onto the political scene, he was on the attack and he was sort of showing strength. And now it's much, much different.
Look, I wrote down a phrase, this sounds whiny. And he did. He just came across, frankly, I got a couple of teenagers, so I'm used to whining. And that's kind of what this sounded like, He came across a bit that way. The other aspect to this that I think we shouldn't forget, a lot of people
I don't know. Did he sound whiny? I don't know.
are trying to, you can make the comparisons to 2016 to today. In 2016, he aired the grievances of other people. Whatever you think of Donald Trump, he was airing, I think,
I agree,
he was
David.
airing grievances about trade and about.
No, and I think hold on, we got to pause so we get this hot Chuck Todd action. But no, I agree with you, Davey. Yeah, no, if this wasn't a big win for Biden, he would be rah pro Ukraine all day and all night, and he'd be like, "What? I gave him aid." He would ignore the part that he was trying to get info on Hunter Biden. But he's like, "Oh, I gave him aid. What are you talking about?" And if he were to become president again, he would shut right up with his fucking Ukraine criticism. He'd have one meeting with a general, and that would be that.
Right? Well, in theory, he was airing the voter grievances. This time it's all about himself, right? And that whole speech, and what's interesting there is that, again, it goes back to his entire 2024 strategy from the day he announced. By the way, he ought to stop doing events at Mar-a-Lago because it saps his energy. This is very similar to how his announcement speech went, which also had a bit low energy. Whatever.
The complete and utter lack of substance that is produced by Chuck Todd. I swear to God, I think I produce more insightful fucking thing. What the fuck are you talking about, man? You're supposed to be #1 NBC political commentator, and this is what you got to say? He was kind of whiny. He looked low energy. Man, give us a better analysis of the situation, Chuck.
Whatever it
Teleprompter
is,
vibes,
you know,
maybe.
Yeah, teleprompter's a good observation there too. Whenever you put that in front of him, he's leaning on it a bit too much. It's maybe that's what saps his energy. But something there does. I do think it's notable.
He did
I
wrap
think
it
it's the
up
first
quick.
time he's ever admitted he lost the election. He did it in a backhanded way when he said, "I just, you know." That when he talked about Twitter and he made up some weird statistic that somehow Twitter hid the New York Post in a way that I guess everybody in New York wouldn't see the New York Post without going to Twitter. I don't understand that logic. But then he said 17 points, and he says all we needed was 16.9. And I went, whoa,
Sorry, 1 sec.
Donald Trump's admitting he didn't win the election. That isn't, at least it's notable that he's going down that road. But this struck me as he's desperately hoping this entire campaign is about protecting himself legally. He did it by announcing and everything in that speech. He's trying to get the party to rally around him. He's no longer worried about them.
We mentioned that we had a team of people who were listening to the former president's speech as it was unfolding here in case there was further news.
Chuck
And here
Todd
again
from my
now, just the
headphones.
last maybe 60 seconds or so, he is again going after the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, specifically calling him the criminal, saying that the criminal is the district attorney, suggesting that it is perhaps Bragg who should be prosecuted, or at a minimum suggesting that he should resign. A bit of an echo of attacks that we've heard from him before, but obviously this takes on a different...
It's the classic manipulator, right? No, you're the one that's all fucked up. You're the one that's wrong. I mean, it's like literally the entire American public is the battered wife in Trump's fucking sordid affair.
Context, given everything that Gabe just laid out, happened in that courtroom not less than a few hours ago. Gabe, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, Hallie, this came up in court, as you said, and it was a situation where the judge really tried to walk this.
Was that a phone ringing? Was that a fucking 1970s style phone ring that I just heard? Hold on, one more time. Let's hear this.
Courtroom not less than a few hours ago. Gabe, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, Hallie, this came up in court, as you said, and
It was a phone. Who the fuck has a fucking... What?
it was a situation where the judge really tried to walk this fine line. He said that he understood the former president's need to defend himself in the court of public opinion, given that he's the current presidential candidate. The judge's problem was with some of this harsh, charged rhetoric, as the judge called it. Essentially, you know, when the former president posted on social media that he warned of death and destruction, when he called for protests, that's the things that the judge had the issue with. Not necessarily. It is a fine line, because he can go after the district attorney and say, you know, he's bringing up a fake case, as he just said. But it's when he calls for or threatens the DA in somehow, and it has real-world consequences. Of course, over the last several weeks, we have heard the NYPD say that there have been dozens of serious threats on the district attorney's office. That is the type of rhetoric the judge really had a problem with. Not sure if he would had a problem without, you know, going into his mind.
To Stormy Daniels' lawyer. That payment was to hide damaging information from the voting public. The participant scheme was illegal. The scheme violated New York election law, which makes it a...
Reporters there in the Mar-a-Lago ballroom there in West Palm Beach.
Let's get Fox News.
He started off his, what now, about 20, 25-minute long statement there with a long preface of the litany of investigations that are ongoing into his conduct related to the Jack Smith special counsel probe the DOJ is conducting there into his actions leading up to and on January 6, 2021, the Capitol riot. Also, he spoke at length about the investigation going on, that sister investigation Jack Smith is conducting into the FBI raid there at Mar-a-Lago last August that found numerous classified documents that were not returned.
These creepy weirdos that want to like be seen and touched by Donald Trump, man. This is so fucked.
Edged on obstruction charges there, possibly. And then, of course, he spoke at length about the Fulton County, Georgia investigation that District Attorney there, Fani Willis, is conducting as well into alleged interference there in the 2020 election in the state of Georgia. Remember that very famous phone call That was
Perfect
given to the
phone
Washington
call.
Post on January 3rd, 2020, outlining a call he made to then Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and others, saying to find 11,000 some votes in order to make up the difference there in a state that he had lost. Now, you were listening to the president. He then finally got into the issue at hand here, the now arraignment he underwent today in Lower Manhattan.
See how Fox News isn't like entertaining the
going after
lies?
District Attorney Alvin Bragg,
You know what I
calling
mean?
this a political prosecution and persecution, saying that this, and these are his words, is only being done to interfere in the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. Now, there are some claims he also made.
This is local Fox News, though.
About
That's
the
why.
2020 presidential election contest, of course, that he lost
Hannity,
to now
Tucker.
President Biden. President Biden won, of course, by 306 electoral votes. The Trump campaign and his allies, remember, mounted 60-plus lawsuits in several different battleground states and lost most of them there. You just saw failed Arizona gubernatorial candidate Carrie Lake in
I got to mention that
the
failed
ballroom
part.
as
She ain't
well. It's
getting
interesting to see
nowhere.
who all these Trump world figures are who came out for this speech. He also made some claims as well about the 2020 election contest that he lost. And remember, multiple federal agencies at the time said there was not a substantial amount of fraud to have overturned the election results as they stand. There, of course, you recognize that face, MyPillow CEO founder Mike Lindell.
Mike Lindell
who
still,
himself
he's
has
still
been quite a
invited?
proponent of these baseless 2020 election conspiracy theories. You also saw
They
Dan
said
Scavino
baseless?
there, who used to run social media in the Trump White House. Now, remember, he's also talking about going after now President Biden.
I'm not sure what
for
the
a number
settlement
of
forces
different
them to do.
Matters and issues that he says he would do differently if he were president right now, hammering him on his handling of the war in Ukraine, high gas prices, what have you. Now, he spoke at length about some of the investigations going on surrounding President Biden's son, Hunter Biden. We know there are several congressional investigations
they're all
looking into
there.
Hunter Biden's dealings with China as a business partner, sitting on some boards there. Now, remember, President Biden
Oh my God,
is not
dude,
under
they're all
investigation
there.
for some of the alleged improprieties that former President Trump made today in this
Don't wanna
speech.
miss the trick.
Hunter Biden,
No.
of course, is under investigation at the
All
level
the
of the
what
DOJ.
is this guy's hair? What is it? What is this? What is this? Come on. Come on. They're supervillains. They think they're fucking supervillain.
Hunter Biden, of course,
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this?
is under investigation at the level of the DOJ.
You draw that
for
shit
certain
on with a
infractions
fucking
when it has to do with
Sharpie?
taxes, when it has to do with owning a weapon. And we'll see how that plays out. But remember, Hunter Biden, President Biden,
drew
they
that
have
shit
not
on
been
with a
indicted. They have
Sharpie.
not been charged with a crime. Today, former President Donald Trump becoming the first former president in history to be indicted and arraigned on a crime. There you see his
Well, Kim Goblin, I mean, look at the difference. Look at this is a proper, it's a little bit of blending.
To be indicted and arraigned.
Right? It covers, I think he should have shaved a little bit, cleaned up that line a little bit, right? But what the fuck is this, man?
On a crime there you see his
right
longtime ally and supporter Roger Stone there at Mar-a-Lago. So right now we are going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be bringing just yesterday. We were here in court again.
They got like car crashes in their bumpers, man. Fox. They know what the people want. The only thing they don't have is like some bimbo or something, For 40 years, only shaved it a year ago. Oh, really? They got natural disasters and car crashes in their bumpers.
And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox, almost 6
He likes
o'clock
it that
here
way.
on the
What's
West
the
Coast,
problem?
9 o'clock there in West Palm.
I'm trying to be funny, Kem Goblin. Let me be. I'm trying to riff and shit on authoritarian fascists. Let a man riff, Chem Goblin.
Palm Beach, Florida. You just watched former President Trump deliver remarks, the first on camera, responding to that historic arraignment today. Fox News correspondent David Spunt has a look and a summary at what all has transpired today from Washington.
I don't know if that's how beards work.
The 16-page, 34-count indictment centers on what Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg calls a catch-and-kill scheme to boost then-candidate Donald Trump's campaign for the White House. Bragg's office alleges the defendant, Donald J. Trump, repeatedly and fraudulently falsified New York's business records to conceal criminal conduct that hid damaging information from the voting public during the 2016 presidential election. The 34 counts focus on what Bragg calls reimbursements to former Trump fixer Michael Cohen, who claims he paid $150,000 to former Playboy playmate Karen McDougal and $130,000 to adult film actress Stormy Daniels in an effort to silence them and keep the story out of the headlines to help the Trump campaign. Bragg continues, in order to execute the unlawful scheme, the participants violated election laws and made and caused false entries in the business records of various entities in New York. The participants also took steps that mischaracterized, for tax purposes, the true nature of the payments made in furtherance of the scheme.
It really does feel like they're getting into it a little more than they would normally. They're getting into the weeds and legality of it a little bit more. It feels like they're buttressing the, hey, look, he committed a crime. You commit the crime, you do the time kind of argument that's going to be coming from the DeSantis wing.
In New York state law, falsifying records in the first degree is a felony and includes intent to commit another crime.
They're trying to set their audience up for this.
Not specifically mentioned in the indictment.
The indictment doesn't specify that because the law does not so require.
But Bragg points to a New York state election law,
which makes it a crime to conspire to promote a candidacy by unlawful means.
In Washington, David Spunt, Fox News.
David Spun?
David, thanks so much. We want to bring into the conversation now Ben Jacobs.
No, not Ben Jacobs, no.
We spoke last night, of course, Ben, and now we were all, anticipating this, previewing this today. It has come to pass now. You're hearing the word surreal a lot. Do you agree?
I was thinking of someone else. I've never seen this fucking guy.
In some ways, it certainly is surreal in the abstract to think about a former president being indicted. But in other ways, this was so expected that this has been priced in. There's been speculation about Trump's criminal jeopardy for a while now, that this seemed almost inevitable. And certainly in his response tonight, it seemed like a normal Trump rally rather than the chase and response of criminal defendant facing indictment.
Yeah, let's talk about the remarks. So many people have just watched this. We just got off it. But I was struck by the fact that he kind of laid out the preface into all of the investigations into him at the moment, and then finally commented on what happened today. So that was quite the setup there, was it not?
Oh, it was quite the setup for him going through and dealing with what are, frankly, far more likely legally damaging investigations that he's dealing with. That as of now, he's dealing with the Georgia prosecution over his attempts to overturn the 2020 election. He's dealing with the federal special prosecutor, Jackson.
They keep bringing that part up, man. They're not, this is local Fox. This isn't Hannity and Tucker. This is the shit that they would normally play, like, in between Hannity and Tucker, right? These are the local guys. But goddamn, there's no way that the infrastructure doesn't support the direction that these guys are going in.
Smith, which combines both elections and his mishandling of classified documents, as well as the fact in several weeks he has a defamation trial in New York that he has to go back to over a woman who's suing him, saying that he defamed her when he denied that he had raped her in a New York department store in the 1990s. So there's a host of things going on, and part of this was to lay out the predicates.
Just casual Trump shit.
This is something that most legal experts agree is probably the most legally tenuous of the cases that he faces, and to tie it all together and try to link all of these together is part of a broad-reaching effort to try to stop him and try to keep him from running for president in 2024.
Okay, to that point, though, Ben, you heard that. That was, I think, the line that stuck out to me in this speech today. He flat out said on camera that this is political persecution. This is meant to interfere in his run, in his bid, his candidacy for the 2024 election. That seems to be I guess, the line
guess
that
elections
all of his
supersede
supporters and
law.
himself, they're going to go with this.
Yes, it's him versus the world, and that is the line that they've been using, and using this in a variety of ways. And some have been using some pretty wrought historical analogies to describe this. But this is the type of thing where this is his message that they're coming for you. I'm just between them and you, and that there is some sort of heat shield to protect his voters and his base
Some
from
sort of
these
heat
elites.
shield.
Talking about Alvin Bragg as a Soros-backed prosecutor and deliberately emphasizing that
What does
his
that
campaign
mean?
funds from George Soros. That this is really sort of a broader, overarching message of us against them that he's basing his entire presidential campaign around.
Yeah, Ben, did we hear from, some of his rivals in the, nominating process that have announced, that have not announced today? We got a lot of congressional reaction, but we haven't heard much from them today.
No, there's been relatively minimal reaction from other presidential candidates. From their perspective, there's been relatively minimal reaction from other presidential candidates. From their perspective, they weighed in on the indictment and supported him before, but this has been a day in which Trump has really dominated the news. For example, Ron DeSantis didn't have much of a public schedule today. But this is trying to step back and try not get in the way of this, because there's not a ton of upside into getting to the middle of this news cycle that they tried to jump in before.
What
but
does
at
Chuck
this
Todd
point,
have to
all the
say
coverage
about
is
it?
so
Wouldn't that be
entirely
great if they
focused
cut
on
to
Trump
Chuck
himself
Todd?
that there's
He's just
relatively
fucking
little room
everywhere.
for political punditry or stuff. That this is a day for the legal pundits as much as political pundits.
Yeah, I am kind of curious as well. We were asking some of our legal analysis whether or not,
Ask
his
Chuck
day-to-day, his campaign schedule will be impacted by this. He doesn't have to, show up again until December 4th. That could change in the interim. But do you anticipate this being, deleterious to his campaign schedule or beneficial?
It's certainly not helpful to have to black out chunks of time to deal with lawyers,
right?
And all the legal stuff of that. But he had to deal with lawyers at this point for a while. But it's not as if the legal troubles
Ain't no
suddenly
problem
popped
for
out
Trump.
on him. This is not, something yesterday everything was free and easy. That he's been in legal jeopardy since leaving the White House, and that this doesn't add anything new to him. It changes the nature of what it is. But the fact that he's facing a host of criminal cases, this doesn't necessarily change the day to day. It just frames it in a different way for terms of what it means politically for him, and what it means legally for him, as he is now officially a criminal defendant.
Yeah, Ben, let's talk about his campaign. Massive fundraising numbers since we got the news that he was indicted last Thursday, and then of course also, like I said, there'll be fundraising off this as well. But he has gotten quite a big poll bump in the polls when he's up against some of his would-be GOP rivals for the nomination. He's far and away ahead, right?
Yes, no, he's far away ahead in polls of Republican primary that has helped him with the Republican primaries. But you've seen polls of independent voters who approve of the indictment. And the challenge for him is that while this helps him beat Ron DeSantis, as I mentioned before, that there's nothing that's happened today, nothing he said in that speech earlier tonight that helps him with independent voters, with suburban women in Phoenix, in Atlanta, in Milwaukee, that this is something that binds the base closer to him and works to energize voters who voted for him before. But there's nothing about this that makes him more appealing to someone who voted for Joe Biden in 2020. And that's sort of the contradiction of this. This emphasizes the reasons why people who voted for him want to vote for him again, but this doesn't do a lot to win people over. And he lost by 7 million votes last time, and that's sort of the dilemma here. That this helps him in the primary, helps him get to Milwaukee in the summer of 2024, but this doesn't really help him with Wisconsin in November 2024.
Yeah, well, speaking of Milwaukee this year, there's going to be a debate in August amongst whoever the GOP, candidate class is at that point. And I would be hard-pressed. Do you think any of these other candidates, Pompeo possibly, Pence possibly, yes, Nikki Haley has announced, Asa Hutchinson has announced, DeSantis hasn't announced yet, but are they going to go after Trump on a debate stage over the fact that he is a criminal defendant, he's indicted? Do you think that's going to happen?
Oh, come on, they have to.
I think someone has to do it. At this point, it's hard to beat
DeSantis
someone
is
in an
going to
election
do
by
it.
praising them. As the great philosopher Ric Flair said, to be the man, you have to beat the man. But this is not something that was not a topic of conversation in 2016. That these personal attacks, the investigations of Trump were brought up by Trump's rivals. But at this point, you have to somehow deal with it and take on the risk of doing it. That someone has to be the person who does it. But that also leads to the other sort of challenge that it's he who wields the knife rarely wears the crown. That there's political, that to take down Trump, you have to go after him because this is a real political Achilles heel in a general election. But it doesn't make you terribly popular with Republican primary voters to do it. And that's the dilemma that that any other Republican
Maybe
is facing.
Davey's right.
Yeah, Ben, we're just watching the plane land back in Palm Beach a couple of hours ago. We all watched these remarks. I guess, Ben Slasser, you follow this so closely. I guess what's next on the campaign schedule? We have a lot of would-be candidates.
No. All right, there you go, folks. That's my fucking shit. Thank you. I'm too tired. I'm too tired to do a Ukrainian thing. I just wanted to follow up on the Trump shit. I don't know. What do I think about this? I think in conclusion, fair. You could look beat, get some rest. I'm like 4 hours of sleep here. Trump gets his lawyers from Craigslist. That's funny. You seem happy but blissed out. I'm just at 4 hours of sleep. He's really finicky right now. Like, he's getting up every hour. Needs a feeding. Doesn't want to sleep for longer than an hour. So, but no. In terms of what do I think about this? I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good thing. I think ultimately, even if he isn't convicted of anything and he doesn't see any jail time. Yeah, fight the good fight. Yeah, exactly. But no, I think even if, he doesn't see jail time, it does say something, that you are not above the law. If you commit egregious crimes, Clinton committed all kinds of crimes. Bush committed all kinds of crimes. They're all millionaires. What, do you think that was an accident? Oh no, they're just really good at stuff. So they're all corrupt. They're all committing crimes. But Trump was on a whole other level. Before he was even president, he was on a whole other level, like mafia level. Will it be worth it when the doctor's salary is paying for your quadruple bypass? Is that you calling me fat, Zeoduke? You're mean. You're just mean. So ultimately, I think, even if he doesn't go to jail, it'll be a good thing that all this happened, that the investigations happened. I don't think it's a partisan witch hunt. I almost wish it was a partisan witch hunt. It's like, throw the book at this guy. Please, set an example. I mean, like expensive future operations rather than a weight reference. Okay. You just think everyone's going to die of like a horrible heart disease or cancer or something? Okay, Zio. So yeah, I almost wish, they would be partisan in this. It's like I almost wish the Republicans were right when they call the Democrats Marxist. It's like, really, I wish they'd be more socialist in their leanings. But we have a long time of waiting now after today. 60 days until the next hearing or whatever. So I think it won't be the last we hear of it in 60 days. They're going to be interviewing more people. So we'll get little updates here and there, but in terms of like next major moves, it'll be in about 60 days. Looks like they're going to be right in the thick of this trial during the election. In terms of timing, I'm not going to sit here and say the Democrats weren't interested in timing this correctly for the elections. It's the timing is too perfect for them, you know, and they kick the can down the road, right? You know, so that, you know, Bragg is the third prosecutor to be on this. So it's hard to say that that the Democrats didn't time this somewhat, you know, that they didn't nudge the Justice Department to time this in a way that would be advantageous. I think that's a possibility. I guess, you know, I don't want to use a what about argument here, because I don't like it when politicians are able to nudge the Justice Department. But does anyone think that the Republicans wouldn't be doing all of this plus 10 if the shoe was on the other foot? It's actually really quite surprising. Trump had 4 years to shit all over Hunter Biden, to shit all over Hillary Clinton. And he didn't do jack shit about it. I mean, there was just the Benghazi hearings that she sailed through. Made the Republicans look fucking foolish, in fact. But, I mean, does anyone believe, like, if the shoe was on the other foot, if Joe Biden planned an insurrection and, like, the Republicans wouldn't be using every judicial trick in the book to nail them to the fucking board? I feel like they would. All right, folks. Sounds like most people have left anyway. No one's really talking. Have a good day, Zio Duke. Have a good day, Lenny. Thank you so much, Lenny, the #1 financial contributor to the stream. Make sure you check out Accidents Waiting to Happen on YouTube. Thank you, Lenny. Cam Goblin, thank you so much for being here. Davey, also known as Alexander. Love Ness. Is that all who stopped by? There you go. That's my Trump shit. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.